Hey, Rose, how are you today? You're welcome. We are
Hey, thank
live
you.
now.
Wow. Thank you very
Well,
much. Thank you for this for the platform. Thank you for having me again.
thank you so much. We said that this time we're going to have a dialogue, a different kind of a conversation today. Ladies and gentlemen, you're welcome to our conversation today. And we are going to be talking about everything and nothing regarding racism. And it's on the subject of Get Your Knee Off Our Necks. You remember the death of George Floyd on the 25th of May. I will not forget that day. Can you forget that day, Rose?
I can never forget it. I remember it was a somehow a sunny day because there was a lot of sun coming through my window, and I had just come home and I was going through Facebook, and all of a
Mhm,
sudden I see this video, and intuitively I knew I shouldn't watch it, because
mhm,
I knew it was going to be brutal. And there was this video, somehow there was something different about it. I don't know what,
mhm,
but I didn't want to look, but I looked. I watched almost the whole thing. And I remember sitting on my bed and thinking, it has to stop. I think
yes,
something happened in my brain on that day, which was it was amazing because I have seen many, many black people being killed. It's not the
yes,
first time that we saw that. It's not the first time we heard of this, that there is racism, but there was some kind of spirit going on this day that
mhm,
somehow hit me so hard. I sat on my bed and I thought, I don't want to see this anymore.
mhm,
It has to stop. And I didn't know who to go and tell, who to go and beat, who to go and shout
mhm,
at. I wanted something to happen.
yes.
Yeah. How was it for you?
And it was really terrible. I do not like watching such videos. I don't watch such videos usually, so that's why it can be going around me, and I would not even know what is happening, except I
Mm,
really decide to. And but this specific date, it is a day where we planned actually to have the African Independent Day.
mhm,
So that's why I was particular. I was specific, and I just can't forget that day because it was the 25th of May is a day related to the African Independent Day, and we
mhm,
usually celebrate that day also in my city where we work and where we have the organization. And so we had planned a big organization program that day, and so because of the corona, we had to stop it. But
mhm,
when we canceled that program, we were, of course, planning and expecting. And so it became like I just kept hearing, I can't breathe, I can't breathe, I can't breathe. And I was like, what is happening with I can't breathe, you know? So that was the moment that I said, hey, you have to just check some of these videos. I saw a few seconds and I said, no, I just can't continue. And we have been doing the work of racism ever since. I mean, I started the organization Sompon Social Service as a result of my personal experiences with racism, right? And
mhm.
so this has been in school at the university. I lecture at the same university where I really was touched at somehow by professors that are well known and professors that really have the law in their hands. And so when I finished school, I set within me I was going to work in that. So the start of our work is really on the critical thinking and racism and all that. So when this video was going on, I thought to myself, God, this is just too much. We just can't keep doing as if it is not real. It is really real, right? So, and because we have been doing racism all this time, and I lecture at the University of Esslingen also on the issue of anti-racism, we said to ourselves, hey, stop, now we have to have something on a weekly basis that we just have to remind ourselves this thing is real. If people are not talking about it, doesn't mean that it's not there. It is real. And it simply reminded me to when the refugees came to Germany. Remember 2015, we had a lot of refugees who came to Germany,
Yes.
and we decided to do some programs where we were going to welcome them, help them, support them. And one of my very good German friends, we worked a lot together, asked me, Vera, aren't you tired of talking
Yes.
about racism? Aren't you tired? And aren't you afraid that one can do you something, you know? And then it dawned on me, oh, wait a minute, this topic can really call for trouble on you, right? So, and when we were doing this program, she really, for my sake, invited, police, but in cripples now, where they were under covered, right?
Mm,
And I just noticed some people were just there, but they were not the usual people, and so I asked who were they. They were, and they said, oh, they were also police. They just like the program, not knowing that my friend had organized everything so that in case something happens to me, then I will be able to be protected somehow, So when we talk about racism, it's a really, really deep thing, and it hurts a lot of people. It traumatizes the oppressed, or again, the victims. And I think that the oppressor himself or herself is also not at rest. It's a permanent sickness that you have to be healing every day with a conscious effort of always justifying why you react the way you react, So yeah, it wasn't a very nice video, and it is not a nice scenario. And also for us, particularly for blacks in Germany, and particularly for the young boy and the African man,
mhm.
the issue of racism is really tough. It's really tough for them.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I think what you say when this woman asks, "Aren't you exhausted?" I think that is, there's a time I was teaching about racism yet again in another school, and we were teaching teachers about racism,
Mm-hmm.
and they had been asking, so what can we do to make it
Yeah.
stop? And so we told them, stop doing this, stop reading this form of literature.
Yes.
They argued and argued and say they can't stop it because it's culture. There's no way we can stop doing certain things. And then later comes another teacher and asks me that this thing has been going on for centuries. Why
Yeah.
won't it stop? And for that just left such a thing in my mind, because I thought, you come and ask us what you can do to make it
Yeah.
stop. We say this is what you can do to make it stop. And then you say, no, we cannot do that. Give us another solution, and it's
Mm.
like a never ending circle of this is what you can do. But then when people don't do it, people don't want to do it. And then they still ask, why? And I told that man, and this is why in 20 years, I will still be standing here and teaching your son about
Yeah.
the same things that I had to come and teach you here
Yeah.
today.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
tragic, really.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really a pain. As it's really challenging because um I think the issue of racism, we have to understand that it is about power, it's
Mm,
about resources,
yeah.
and honestly, it's not very easy for people who have enjoyed so much power, so much economic resources, so much strength, um, this kind of power that has been given to them, to just give it off.
Hmm.
Someone called me that they wanted to really sit and think about their white privileges. And then I sent them a program, how it's going to look like. And then this is already like 3 weeks now. He's not responding. And I'm
Hmm.
like thinking, okay, were you just pulling my leg to see if I was going to do something, or you
Hmm.
just wanted me to do this course for free for you?
Hmm.
Because again, you have to spend some money, right? So, and I just think that racism is a conversation that we should have regularly. But
Yeah.
I think most important, we really have to start talking about um, empowering ourselves in not just reminding ourselves of the fact that it is there, but I think we have to start having the conversation of how we can really empower ourselves in our businesses. Because if it's about resources, then when you're financially stable, some things you won't really experience, right? I mean,
Yes.
let's take for example, if you're going to stay in a good neighborhood where you're going to pay, you have your own your own house yourself, then there are some things you will not experience with some particular kind of people,
Mm.
right? So I think that again, it's really a call for us to understand that we have to work in that area to improve our resources, but also the knowledge about our history is so important, right? Because usually when we talk about racism or about Africa, most of the time people think that Africa starts with
With
colonialism,
slavery. Mm-hmm.
with slavery, you know?
Mm.
So it's like, hey, wait a minute, let's go back. Before slavery came, was
Mm-hmm.
there not Africa?
Yeah. And it's so amazing because I was involved in another book where I was supposed to research about
Mm-hmm,
the book is actually quite known. It's called Errungenschaften Afrikas, and
mm-hmm,
written by Dr. Keith Hamaimbo. And it was, for me, I remember there is a time I was reading about the story of Ghana, about Ya Asantewa,
mm-hmm.
and reading there that they had won against the British for
Yes.
70 consecutive years without all these machines and guns. They just fought and won for 70. Imagine 70 years. That's a
Mm-hmm.
whole generation. But how we
Yes.
were taught, it was like in my mind when I was in my history classes, especially when I was in high school, it was as
Mm-hmm.
if the white people came, the black people gave them land, and that was it. In my brain, it was like a thing that lasted for 4 weeks, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
this process, and I realized just not appreciating this process, first of all, not knowing what was, and then this taking away the history and the context as if it took 2 seconds. That
Mm-hmm.
for me, it opened my mind so much because I was like, if people have been mistreated for 70 years,
Yes.
imagine living in a situation where people are just mistreating you for 70 years and you're
Yes.
still going on, you're still
Yes.
going
Keep
on.
going on.
Yeah. And what do they want? They want the gold. They want what you have. They want your
Yes.
resources. And
Yes.
through that, they told each other stories, of course, to justify what they had been doing here. And I
That's it.
think for me, that has been the greatest form of empowerment, among other things, to look
Yes.
back and see what happened to us, to people like me
Yes.
before this madness started.
Yes.
Hmm.
Yes, and we have also Mori. Mori, thank you. We said today we're going to have a dialogue, a conversation that's not just like the other ones with interviews and all that. So we just want to share the space. And Mori says that we're going back to the conversation where I think you asked me how I felt the day that Judge Joe was killed. And she says that I can't forget the hate in the eyes of the policeman as
Hmm.
he placed his knee comfortably on George's neck,
Yeah.
and killed him in a cold blood and did not hide his pleasure in doing so.
Hmm.
It shows how a black man's life is seen as worthless in this world.
Yeah.
Um, yes, that's true. I think yes, and it's time for us also to really to work on that because I think that we are not worthless. I think that the thing is when someone wants to steal from you, the person must make you feel that that thing that you have is not worthy. So, because for you to get my thing, you have to make me not like that thing. And you have to give me the impression that it's not even worthy.
Hmm.
And so, this
Sorry, I lost you.
have that challenge that they have to manipulate and make us feel that, oh no, it is not, you are not worthy. But take note, they say that you're not worthy, but they want to have the things that you have.
Ah,
They say
yes.
your lip is thick, it's not good, but they put Botox. They
Yes.
say your pore is too big, it's not good, but they put Botox. I
Really, they
mean,
even have trousers these days full of sponge. I saw them in a shop, a trouser that's standing on itself, and really, it has a butt. And
Yes,
I was like, these people really, how
of
can they do
course.
this? Really?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they say your color is not good, but they are yearning for it when they go to browns themselves,
Yeah.
right? So you just simply realize that it is a hate because they can't have what you have. You
Mm,
have it naturally. Now, because you have it so naturally, they have to really pay hard to
mm,
get that which you have. They really have to actually suffer. You know, the years when I came back, I'm like 16 years in Germany. I remember they used to call us those the Farbige, so
mhm,
color people. And I
mm,
was like, wait a minute, when you are red, when you're angry, you're red. Who is now colored? I mean, I have just one brown skin or black skin,
yeah,
whatever, and it's
yeah,
always the same. But
yeah.
when my good friend is angry, he becomes either black or he becomes red,
Mm-hmm.
right? When it goes
Sometimes
to
they
the
even get
sun,
green, depending.
sometimes they get green. So I kept asking my colleague professor, why do you use the word farbige when
Mhm,
you're the one who is always changing the color?
mhm,
Not me.
yeah,
Because if the sun burns me, you may not even know, except that I want to use the product again to damage the God given melanin on me, right? Then you
mhm,
will start having the same challenges with these people, right?
mhm,
So I think that it is a manipulative skills. They were very sure of the fact that they can't have what we had. That's why, if you go back to history, when they started coming around the 18th, they really said and they saw that Africa was so strong in culture, powerful group of people, well organized,
mhm.
well structured. Women were honored, women ruled the kingdoms. And so they realized that for us to destroy these people, the only thing to do is to destroy their culture.
Yeah,
So, and a human being without a culture, oh la
that's
la,
nothing. Yeah,
it's nothing.
exactly.
And a
Yeah,
photocopy can never be an original. I mean,
it,
just listen to our English.
yeah,
You just know that it's a
it's not
photocopy, right?
original. Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not original.
Mm-hmm,
So my daughter learns English through the YouTube at times, and when
mm-hmm,
she pronounces, I'm like, okay, you see, photocopy cannot be the original.
mm-hmm,
Right.
mm-hmm.
So, Maureen, if you want to join the link, I can send you the link. The link is up there so you can join our conversation today. I'm
Yeah,
sending you the link. You can get the link and then join the conversation. I just thought that we
nice.
just have to exchange today. So just join the conversation if you want to, and we can have this talk rolling. Right. Today, we just want to have a talk and then share our experiences, but of course, also see how to help ourselves and move forward. Mhm, exactly. So back to our conversation, Rose. It means that racism or Africa did not start with racism or did not start, pardon, with slavery. It did not start with colonialism because it will mean that Africa started 1845,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
right? With the
Yeah.
Berlin Conference. I mean, let's be honest. And that's why they deceive us that they discovered River Niger. They discovered
Whenever I
Cameroon
hear
and
such
they
things, I get mad. Eh? I get so mad, not only because they say that, but because we also teach such things in our schools.
mm-hmm,
When you were talking, I kept remembering this quote by Woodson Carter, who says, "If you want to govern a man's mind, you don't need to go and force him to do things. You just have to work with his mind,
mm-hmm,
and if you force his mind to know that he has to take the back door, even if there's
mm-hmm,
no back door, he will go and make the back door for himself and use it."
mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
this is so tragic because even us, somehow we don't remember. Because I remember writing that in my exams, writing "Who
Yes.
discovered Mount Kenya" and passing. I never for 1 second questioned, but where was my great great grandmother?
But how would you question when your entire environment, your
Yeah.
entire the entire environment, the people around, they tell you that, let's be honest, it
Mm,
takes God courageous people to say, wait a minute, stop. What are you
What
saying?
is going on here?
What is
Someone
going
was
on?
saying the last thing a fish notices is the water that it's swimming in. And I thought,
Mhm.
my God, this is so true. If I'm
Yeah,
swimming in that water, I will not start thinking, water. Doesn't cross my mind, right?
exactly. And that's why I was also having a conversation today with someone, and we work with a lot of organizations, and so there's a project that we're called to do, and that project we're supposed to have laptops or buy laptops for poor families, right? And to support them. And then that was the moment it dawned on me that even though we live in Germany, we have lots of poor people,
Yeah.
economically down, and amongst them Africans.
Hmm.
And the one we were doing, we offer the language course, and we really wanted to offer that online. So the day that we were to start, goodness, the people who registered for the online program themselves could not join. And I was like, what is this? So I went back and we're having a conversation, only to realize that they didn't have access to internet.
Internet.
And you know, and I'm
Hmm.
like, oh my goodness. So indeed, even though we all live in Germany, we are
Hmm.
having different kinds of a lifestyle, and some people really don't have access to certain very, basic necessities of life, right? So
Hmm.
we're now working on that project to say, hey, you know what? We want to have laptops, computers for people who really do not have access, and mostly also refugees, that they can come in the office, use that, and then do their works or whatever, do their researches and all that. So, again, I think if we go back to that, we realize that racism is the segregating people from having access to such resources, information that can transform their lives positively.
Which is so amazing because, as you know, I'm always in this education thing, and I am in the Lehramt business, and there
Mm-hmm.
is a study. It's known as the PISA study. And many
Yes.
people know about the PISA study because it was
Mm-hmm.
groundbreaking in Germany. And in one of the results that came out, there was somewhere where they said that in no other country, like in Germany, where the economic status of the parent does it affect a child as much as it does in this country. It is
Yeah.
so amazing because in this country, education is just one of the greatest assets you have,
Yeah.
right? If you're not
Yeah.
educated, you will have find it very hard. It's even
Yeah.
more than in maybe in Kenya, for example. In
Yeah.
Kenya, you don't notice the difference as much as in Germany.
Mm-hmm.
If your parents are in academia, already even the children are different. They speak
Yes.
different. They eat different, and it's this difference, this gap of poverty really increases a lot when you come to academia. And if you
Mm-hmm.
have no connection to these resources, things like, if I didn't have a laptop right now in this corona time, how would I study? It
Exactly.
will be impossible
Exactly.
for me to study because if you don't have resources, you can't even study.
You
Books are
can.
expensive. You can't even get those books.
Yes.
So even that lack of resources directly affects how much you're going to also get an education, which in return will also affect how your children will live, where
Yes.
you will live, which people you talk to. I mean,
Yes.
it's such a huge cycle of structural hardships that people just can't,
Mm-hmm.
you can just break them on your own.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You just can, you need help. We all need help. That's
Hmm.
why usually when people talk on racism, of course it has to do maybe with us as black people and all that. But I tell people we have to get out of this point now and start looking at how can we overcome and really make the best out of our resources, because at the end of the day it's really about resources and
Yeah.
nothing else but resources. Now I can see that, let me put this like a positive discrimination. I don't know. I mean, when my son, when he will go to school, even when he will not study, they will not punish him or talk a lot of things. They just tell him, the teacher once told me, for him, he doesn't have a problem. He will make it anyhow because, so she's saying that because she knows who the mother is. And in one conversation, she said, but I don't get to understand why he behaves this way. He doesn't want to, he doesn't look like, yeah, some like your child. He doesn't want to align like your child, like, just to confirm to what you're saying. It's as if to say, if you have a particular access to specific things, then they want to think that, okay, everybody around you will have that access. Just confirming what you're saying. And access to some things are really so important because it either puts you down or it puts you up.
Hmm.
And so, back again to education. I mean, in the days past, I don't know how it is today. Your child was going to be noted, or they will tell your child to go to gymnasium, or again to Realschule, or again to Hauptschule, according to whatever your background. I remember that my daughter was, she was always saying she's going to go to gymnasium. And so she was preparing hard. She had always only two, one and a half, and two. And then in the German language, it says she had usually three. And then the teacher would tell me, you know what, I think that she should not go to the gymnasium because I think the German language will be a problem for her. And I'm looking at her and say, but excuse me, she's born here. Why should the German language be a problem for her? And if she has chosen to go there, then let her go there. And when she gets there, it's not what she thought. She will get back to the other level.
Hmm.
So yeah, I think that, yeah, it's hard.
It is also today, of course, they also do IQ tests. And I tell this story so very often. I did an IQ test at the university, an IQ test that's supposed to be for children, and I failed. I
You
failed
see.
in that IQ test. If it
Mhm.
had been the one that was being used for me to be enrolled in any form of school, I would never have gotten in.
You see.
Why? Because this IQ test was asking questions about Frau Hölle.
Who
I
is
did not
Frau
grow
Höller?
up.
My God.
Exactly. Who is
Mm.
Frau Hölle? You don't know, right? So there are also so many, it's not just about language, but also culture. How did you grow up? Which books did you grow
Exactly.
up with? They
That's it.
even had a picture of Peter Pan on one of their questions and wanted them to identify Peter Pan.
Mhm.
I do not know how Peter Pan looks like. Now, ask me how Kofi Olomide looks like. I can tell you how
Exactly.
Kofi Olomide looks like.
That's it.
I can tell you how Bob Marley
Exactly.
looks like. I don't know how Peter Pan looks like. And if such
Exactly.
things are also being used, also, of course, there are very, very many IQ tests. It's not just one, but one has to be really, really careful with such things because from intelligence comes the question about culture. Where did you grow up? Which books did you
Exactly.
grow up with? Not because you can't
Mhm.
read books, but just because you read other books.
Yes.
Why people grew up here with Pippi Langstrumpf. I grew up with books like Huckleberry Finn, you know, uh, which are they're just different books. At the same time, they have the same topics. You can criticize them on the very same things, but they're
Yeah.
different. So if somebody asked me about Pippi Langstrumpf and where the father went back then, I couldn't tell you who that is.
Yeah.
And such things are and people sometimes think they can tell that from the color of your skin. And
Yes.
many teachers would like to say they are not racist. I have this
Mm.
conversation very often, especially with students. But I always remind them, I was sitting in the same lecture room as you were sitting, while we were being taught about the pedagogy of people like Rousseau or people like Singer. They are
Yes.
people who had so terrible ideologies about Black people. And we
That's
still sit there and because we have to study the history of pedagogy, so we learn that. But nobody comments upon it. No professor comes and says, but of course, this is not true. We just sit there and write the history of pedagogy.
yeah.
And nobody writes any history as if there was no pedagogy in Africa, for example. You will hear about
No.
all these people from Italy, from Rome. Nothing ever comes from Africa. They
Yes.
don't tell you that the first university that people used to come from Greek Greek and Rome to go to Africa to study. You will never hear such things. Not because it wasn't there, but because it's not written.
Mm-hmm. You know, the worst thing I told you before that I lecture at the University of Esslingen, and a few years back we usually had a program we in the university, and the program was all about, it was once a year, and the lecturer, we will have to gather together, teachers and all this, and we're going to be talking about racism in the university, and not only racism in the university, we're also going to be talking about the students' life and all that. So this day I was going to moderate the program, and we were about, you know, the whole university, students, teachers, lecturers, everybody. So we're about like almost 1,000 people there, right? And I was doing the moderation. Ah, my God. You know, we arrived already early in the morning, and we were talking, and the professor was there, and the director, everybody was there. And to my shock, this man asked me a question. You know, when I think about it, well, maybe it was a good one so that we could have a dialogue on really how to work together. He asked me if there's a university in Cameroon. I looked at him. You know, you're looking at his statue and you're wondering, how can such a person ask you such a question,
And
right?
it's an intelligent person, right?
And
It's someone who is intelligent, right? It's amazing.
you know, and then I told him, you know what? I think you're owing me a seat. We have to sit again and talk. And I
Mhm,
think that you should take part in my trainings so that you will know if there is a university in Cameroon or in Africa in particular.
mhm,
Then I went to the podium, and then I stopped and I went to the podium, and we're having a conversation. And then I introduced him. You know, you introduce him and you're happy, you're introducing, you're doing, it was a nice program. And then this man comes up now, and then according to him, he wants to praise me. And then he says, wow, and you're speaking good German.
mhm,
You know, this in front of almost 1,000 people. You know what I said? I said, oh, thank you. And you too, you really speak really good German. And he looks at me, and I'm like, why are you looking at me? Would you say that to a moderator, a German moderator that comes to moderate? What's
mhm,
that? You know? So, and these are very subtle forms of denial,
mhm,
rejection,
mhm,
segregation,
mhm,
racism, that
mhm,
someone will think it's nothing, but it's something. Another person will say, oh, but they're appreciating your language. But the truth is that at that position, at that level where you were, it's no longer appreciation, right? Because
yeah,
you're standing in a particular capacity. So it's
mhm,
not funny when you tell somebody standing in it's like you are telling a politician that spends most of her day talking with the president of the country, training, and then she comes to your school and then wants to give you a talk, and then you look at the person and say, but you speak good German. Because at that very first beginning, you think that the person doesn't belong here, cannot
mhm,
do it, because you are always taught that because she's black, or because they don't come from here, or they don't look like people who come from here, they should not be able to speak. Question: how do you know that I'm not from here? I mean, is it written on this on my face that I'm not born here?
mhm.
How do you know
Yeah.
that? You know, what about my children who are born here? Would you not tell them that kind of thing you're telling me? You
Mhm,
know? So, but the good thing is, after this, I told him, we have to sit and talk. We can't leave this like this. So,
mhm,
either I'm going to tell this story over and over, even to the press and everything, or we have to have a dialogue. And then we had a good dialogue. And then I was again very shocked in the conversation. He told me, but you know, for some me, someone is Chinese people appreciate it when I tell them that. And I'm like, oh my God, this guy. So you do
What?
not get it. And I'm asking, am I Chinese?
Mhm, mhm,
You know, and I'm asking, am I Chinese? I'm not a Chinese. So if the Chinese people are accepting it and accepting, I'm happy. They are happy with it because you met them in China and they came here and visited you for 3 months, and then you spoke with them, and it's a different scenario altogether. A Chinese that is doing my pedicure is a different Chinese that is teaching at the university. Let's be frank about this.
And
Yeah.
also, if you go to a Chinese who is doing nails there and you tell them for a Chinese you're doing really good nails, that is not acceptable.
No, it's, I mean,
If you go to the university and somebody is standing there, so this is also denying you the intelligence of
that's true.
knowing that if I'm standing in front of the university, I
Oh
should be
my
able to
God.
say to do certain things.
Yes.
So it's actually this surprised. I've had people also telling me all sorts of things. For a black woman, you look beautiful. For a black woman, you're German. So what does that tell me about your idea of people like me?
Yes.
You know. And I
Yes.
was asking a friend of mine today, imagine if we did not grow up with this
Yes.
information of there is a time that a person like me could not do this and this. There is a
Yes.
time a person like me could not enter certain places.
Yes.
Imagine we grew up with that, like the way white people grow up in a world where their language is good enough, their
Yes.
skin is good enough,
Mm,
they are good enough, their hair is
yes.
good enough. For
Mm,
us black people, we have to grow into accepting ourselves because
yeah.
everything around us tells us we are not right.
That's it. That's
And
it.
it's so there's this other, her name is Grada Kilomba. I love this book. She has written a book called Plantation Memories, and she
Mm-hmm.
talks about how we look at ourselves through their eyes.
Yes.
And I was reading that the
Yes.
other day, and it really, I could feel my hair standing because I realized this is what I've been doing for such a long time in my life. I never saw myself through my own eyes because I never
Mm-hmm.
had eyes of my own, really.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't
Mm-hmm.
have the chance to have my own eyes because
Mm-hmm.
everything I touched and looked at had
Right.
already been looked through the eyes of a white person. So even
Yeah.
a black person is a product of what a white person thinks
Oh
a
my
black
word.
person. And it's just so
It's so painful actually because now, even when we are having this conversation, some people do not really realize the importance of
yeah.
this conversation because the thing someone told me, why do you always talk about racism? Excuse me, why should I not talk about racism? I mean,
What else should you
what
talk about?
else should I talk about if
Yeah.
not against injustice? Because
Mhm.
racism is injustice, injustice to humanity, injustice to a particular group of people, injustice to my children. So if I do not talk about it now and continually talking about it, what else should I talk about? Let's be
Yeah.
honest on this conversation. And and then it pauses me when I also hear the black people now say, yes, but Africans also are racist. I say, yes, I know. But I'm not in Africa now. I am now in Germany, and I want to deal with that one first because it is really dangerous when you're in your minority and the majority is just making you think you're not worthy, you're not able. Let's take my daughter have a friend, and I don't know what they were thinking. The friend visited my daughter. My husband picked them up, and when she arrived, I don't know what she was thinking. This is a child, God. This is a child. And this girl looked at looked at the friend, and then looked and was screaming, "Wow, you people are having a house!" I'm not like, then I wasn't there, so my husband picked them up, and my husband was following the conversation. And when they entered my husband the car, the girl told my daughter to sit behind. She will sit in front. It's a big car that we understand. And then the whole time she's like, "How did you get this car?" This is a 10 or 11 years old girl asking an adult, "How much is this car?" And I'm like asking, "Can you buy the car? What is this?" This is an 11 years old child. So again, she looked at the friend and think that, no, you just cannot, there's certain
Can't
things.
afford all
So
that.
you can't. And so when she comes and sees it, she's like, "Wow, really?" you know and so you have to tell your daughter, "Hey, never, never, never think you're at her level. You are superior, 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 and more than her. In fact, triple, triple, triple times, brain wise, financial wise, spiritual wise, every area. So never look at yourself down for not even a single moment, you know. So I have to be having this kind of conversation with a young child every day of my life to tell them, hey, look, you're so wonderful, so beautiful. In fact, leave your hair like you want it. It's your hair. Leave your whatever. Do what you want to do with it. It is yours and it's good with it. You have to have this conversation always and regularly. Every morning when I'm leaving her, I have to say, you are the most beautiful girl on this planet Earth. No one else is like you you know and when I tell her, when I love you and I say I love you, and I do not love you because you are good in mathematics, I just love you because you are lovable and you deserve the
Mm-hmm.
love. And I
Beautiful.
have to say that on a daily basis before some Jack and Jill somewhere comes and think that they are better than her and deserve some specific places than her you know. And this very friend, amazingly, they came to my office. When they came to my office, I won't forget that day, and I was so glad. Um, she came, and then the mother followed, and then she was asking me who owns the office, who is there. I said it's me who started the business, and it's me who is owning it. And then she turns and tell the mother, Mama, why don't you have your own business?
Mm-hmm.
you know. So this is 10 years old, 11 years old. So actually, it's like she's denying 11 years old child is not able to believe that a black child can have and live that kind of a life. 11 years old.
But how? How will they know that? Because
Oh,
everything they ever this is also another story I always tell. I went to this school where I was working in a school, and the first thing a child saw me and I introduced myself. And the child is like, oh, my dad supports children in Africa. Totally random. And then I asked this
mhm,
child, oh, that's really, really nice of your dad. Does he also have support poor children in Germany? And the
mhm.
child he was confused. He did
Yes.
not, he expected me to say thank you. First of
Mhm,
all, he could not even look at me as a teacher. He
mm,
didn't have any capability of looking at me like that. He saw me and remembered the children that his dad supports.
exactly.
And these are those eyes. Because if this is how they see us, the books they write, whenever they
Yes.
write about us, I don't know. I do a lot of research on child literature. I
Mhm,
look a lot of children's books, and there is almost no book where you
mhm.
look at you and you just wonder, but why do they do this?
Yes.
Why do they always bring in this story of skin color?
Mhm.
Through the skin color, you can tell the intelligence of a person, you can tell
How?
where a person comes from, you can tell how far a person will go through the skin color. And their children also
How?
look the same way. Why do they always do that? Because it's all in their literature. People sometimes I tell people, do you know we have a president also in Africa? And
Of
when I
course.
go to a school, they just have a map with animals. Also, another story, I got really angry with this teacher and I was asking her, so you have a map of Africa,
Mhm,
you have Paris, you have London,
mhm.
and then you have Africa, first of
Yes.
all, and
Mhm.
then you have animals.
Mm.
So no wonder this professor is asking you if there are universities in Cameroon, because everything they ever learned about Africa is animals and diseases
But
in a
wait a
whole
minute. He
continent.
is a professor. So
And
that makes me even more angry because he is a
he is a
professor.
professor, the
And
educator.
you can
That is the
imagine that.
educator.
Yeah.
It's,
And one amazing lady, one of my employees is saying that the prejudice they have about us implement their stupidity.
nice.
Thank
Yeah,
you,
really.
really.
Yeah.
And we have Batemona Becker with a great discussion, great platform. Thank you, ma'am, for being here. And we have also Mori who is saying, hey, wow, the parents teach them that Black people are poor and they can't afford a car or a house. And this is true. And this takes me to another story that I experienced in my life. When my boy was in the primary from class one to class three, the school people never knew that that boy was a black boy. because they grew together. They were in class together. They went to kindergarten together, so they were always playing together. And then they went to the primary one, two, and three. One day, suddenly something changed, and I'm asking, what has happened? What happened? The one boy in the class, the parents, they were watching, this documentary, and they were showing really, really poor children on the TV. And this mother asked the child, is there any poor child like that in your school? The child tells the mother, no, mama. The mother insists, are you sure there is no poor child like that in your class?
Mhm.
The boy insists again, no, mama, we don't have. And then the mother goes, she could not
She could not
imagine
have it.
that the
Mhm.
man was not seeing my son like what she wanted him to see. So
Mhm.
she now goes for that and help him. I said, but what about this one?
Mhm.
Is it not like that? Like these people
Mhm.
we are seeing now?
Mhm.
Rose, this was the beginning of hell for my son, caused by a mother
Mhm.
who forcefully made the child, who was never blind to color, blind to anything, to now start seeing color.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
not only color, see poverty. Not only poverty, see degradation, see
Mhm.
impossibility. And
Mhm.
their relationship died down.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
destroyed by a mother who saw a documentary, a child, and the child that she saw the documentary and thought that he is from that area, by then did not yet visit Africa.
Mhm.
So that
And
was
this
the
is
moment
why I get so angry when people tell me pictures don't matter. I have had people telling me
matters.
pictures don't. Every single picture, movie, document, it matters.
It matters. Why do they make photos? Why do they make videos? Why do they make what did you just call media films?
Mhm.
That
Mhm.
is a purpose. How was the colonialism transmitted? How
Yeah.
was hate transmitted? It
Mhm.
was only through films.
Yeah.
That's why actually it is any, and that's why I really appreciate Miles Monroe, an amazing guy. He really
Mm.
understood it, and he would say, if you really want to be wealthy, there are some areas of life you must possess. That's one of the reasons we are trying to possess also the media, because at
Mm.
the end of the day, the media is one of those things we must possess, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Technology and media, because media is the one that tells the story of the people. The media tells who the people are, where they come from, how they behave, and we can transform everything through the media as well. So we can used to say we are going to eat African food, dress African, and stand on the media and speak like we were taught, like we know, speak even our languages. And this will go a long way to influence the things we are doing and doing now today and having today. No one can take that away from this platform, except, of course, the guy who created the platform of YouTube
Mhm.
or again Facebook, and sit with his group and say, you know what, this kind of conversation, we do not want to have it here. So therefore, we put this out of this platform, right?
Mhm.
But you know what? We have to all have possession over the media
Mhm.
and then tell our stories in
Yeah.
our ways.
In our
We
own words.
in our own words. We
Mhm.
started our Africa Journal in Baden-Württemberg, where I am, not because we really wanted to do a lot of literature and writings, but because we really realized that, hey, wait a minute, documentation is A and Amen. What you say, what you tell, the way you do, they can't take it away from that piece of paper.
Mhm.
They can choose to deny it, but you know what? It's in that piece of paper. And we can use it as a material in school and everything.
Mhm.
So we must start using the media. We must start documenting everything we do, how we do it, because it is so important. It tells a lot of our
Mhm.
people. So media don't tell me it doesn't play a role. I remember so well, brought for the Vera, those days they had terrible images they had for Africans. We
Mhm,
fought that much hard. We
mhm.
criticized them. I mean, we don't have to come all the time to say what we do, but we had to criticize them those days, even on paper, and wrote that these are not good images. They are destructive images for the people, and we can't continue. You can help a child without showing that the child is running nose and is not wearing pants. Must you
Mhm,
go? Is that the only image we have in Africa? I mean,
mhm.
you don't want to know the people, those that we have around, and those we really have as also millionaires and great people. Why don't you want to show that area? Why do
And
you
why do
choose
they
to show it?
always also forget how? Because there are poor people in Africa. We never want to deny that there is a lot of poverty in Africa
Mm-hmm.
also. But how did it get there? Do they
Yeah,
talk about the resources? Do they talk
yeah.
about the? I always tell
No.
the story about the coffee.
Mm-mm.
My grandmother has a lot of coffee. Do they tell about the story of how everything is monopolized? Do they tell the story of how they take their dirt here and go dump it in Africa? Do they tell that story, or do they tell only that story of that one child who's, and did they ask the parents of this child, can I broadcast this child? Because this is also dehumanization. Did you ask the parents of this child if they, what would you do to if a white woman, a white mother has a white child, and then they go and see that a child, their child, on a billboard somewhere in Japan? Do you know the hell that will break loose in that place? So why is that allowed? Why is there one child cannot be displayed just like that anyhowly, and the other can just be used just like that with a running nose? And this bringing in color and poverty as if it goes together, as if there is a correlation between poverty and skin color,
Hmm.
is the
That's
greatest miseducation of all times, really.
Yes, that's the best word you have used. That's the word we're looking. The greatest miseducation of the whole. In fact, manipulation, not only miseducation, conscious manipulation of information so
Mhm,
that people do not rise above the very limitations that others have placed before them.
mhm,
So it's a sad story. But then I think it is time for us. Now we are understanding the game. Now we
mhm,
know the game they played over us. We know
mhm,
the game of divide and rule. We know
mhm,
that it is a game of power and resources. I tell my students usually, whenever you drink your coffee, be sure that you have 13 slaves are working for you. So
mhm,
you have to be very conscious of drinking your coffee.
mhm,
So don't just get drinking coffee, but while you're drinking that coffee, remember 13 slaves are behind the coffee, a cup of coffee that you take to drink.
mhm,
Because it is a lot, in some places, even a lot of work that is being done without being paid, and you
mhm,
just get everything here.
mhm,
Ah, we have the best chocolate in Germany or in Europe,
mhm.
and the cacao is not anywhere at the backyard here.
No.
I mean, they have the best bananas, but there's no banana tree. I mean, we have the fake stuff that they are planting and selling for us to pretend as though it was a banana leaf. Now, and they're not conscious of it. And even those, because you told me you're also doing in Entwicklungs Bildungsschriftentwicklung. Even
Mhm.
in that concept, we have to write the concept, not them
Yes.
writing again the specific concept to
Mhm,
reproduce the very false information they have been
mhm,
reproducing all this time.
mhm,
They have to, the people who come from that area must write concepts that should really meet and make people think about their consumption. Because again, there it's also dehumanizing and destructive,
mhm,
right?
mhm. Yeah, yeah.
There's a
And
lot of
tell the
work.
whole story. Tell the whole. We must. I love this platform because here, just as I was saying about this Kilomba, who says when we start seeing ourselves through our own eyes, we start getting our own eyes by listening to stories. We listen to stories of other people, and then we realize there is another way of looking at me. I can look at myself through Vera's eyes instead of some white woman that I don't even know who wrote something,
Mm-hmm.
a story about a black person. And when we
Mm-hmm.
can start seeing ourselves through our own eyes, then we can bring in the context, because
Mm-hmm.
we are the only ones who know the context.
Yes.
A friend of mine, Maureen Morioke, she and I, we went for a walk one day at the university, and then a guy sees us and tells us, "Oh, I have a book that will interest you." And so we were like, okay. And then, of course, he shows us. Maureen knows that story. She also gets mad about this story. He shows
Mm.
us a book about the African women. Who
Mm.
wrote it? Some white man. Some white man. And it was so maddening, because he maybe he went to Africa for, well, even if he went there for 1 year, looked at the people there, and then dares to write about the African women.
Mm.
How can you write about African women in one book? I mean,
Mm-mm.
can you even write about the German women, one country? You can't write about the German women in one book. And a
Mm-mm.
white man dares to write about the black women, in the African women, in one single book. A white
Mm.
person. And the white person who was selling it, of course, sees us and tells us, here is a book for you, so that we can read from a white man how it is to be a black woman. It's
This
crazy,
is
but that's really
this
how
is
they
just
think.
crazy, this is madness at a level, another level, and and these are this subtle type of racism, right? This very, it's like you're not even worthy to tell your own story. So I know your story better than you. And the worst one, I mean, that's why I get so sad when our people don't make use of the opportunities that are there. We have like this freiwillige Arbeit, this we call it a volunteer service, and each year you're looking for which is an African child that will go to this other African country and experience these things. You know, our own will say, oh no, there is this creek, there's this. Again, information that has been passed to you by some television that you can't even back. I mean, I don't mean that there are no disability somewhere, but it's not in all the African countries. I mean, you don't want to take one country and put it all for a continent, right? I mean,
Mhm,
Africa is not a country. So we should be able to say in Nigeria there is a challenge now, or in Cameroon there's challenge, not Africa,
mhm,
right? So we
mhm.
should be able to make the distinction. And our young people they don't even want to take it because they're afraid of the stories that others tell. Now, another this European boy or girl will go now to Cameroon for 6 months, 1 year. Oh my God. She comes back with a pile of information. Wait a minute. She went to work with maybe a state that we have connected her there, and she's gone and they sent her there. And maybe she was even privileged. She went and they saw that it's a white skinned child, and then they just make as if she's also an expert. And then she comes back and starts reproducing again the very doom they have been telling us. And people believe it. People believe it and they buy it. 2016, I started doing when I started really working with African countries, and I went to Cameroon for a training program. And when we went there, we decided to train women. We had like 150 women come. This 150 women, we said we're going to pay their transportation to come for that program. And of course, like here, we had to give them food too, right? So I know a kind of meager sum of money for the transportation, by the way, right?
Mhm,
Now, that's that aside. And then when I came back here, I heard someone said, but how did you have to pay their transportation? These people like a lot of motivation. Then I
mhm.
asked her, each time I go for a training that you organize, you pay my transportation and you pay where I'm going to sleep. And if I'm going to teach, you pay the extra cost. Why do you think if I go now to Cameroon, I should just make them without also paying their transportation?
Yeah,
Why not? You have
yeah,
taught me that if I am coming to training, you will pay my transportation. So when I go back there and I pay their transportation, what's the big deal? You know?
mm,
So I
yeah,
had to make them understand you're misinterpreting the stuff here. There was
Mhm.
nothing wrong in what we did. I just
Mm.
did what you do and what we do here, right?
Yeah.
So we have to really get up. We have to stand and we have to get up and start owning our spaces,
Yeah.
owning that space because it belongs to us as well. And we have to make use of it without being having excuse, without being like Charity would say apologetical. She used to use a word
Mhm.
like that. Just
Mhm.
be, and just
Mhm.
envelop the room. If
Mhm.
envelop the room so that when you leave that space, they know they have come across someone. It will take a long time for them to forget.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Really. Oh, this is amazing. And I
Yeah.
also think one more thing we can do. Since I read this Grada Kilomba's book, I've just been thinking about it, and now I'm just asking myself whenever I'm sitting in that train or entering in that supermarket or
Mhm.
buying that book, which eyes am I looking at myself with?
Mhm.
Whenever I'm trying to make myself smaller, thinking I should be quiet, I should be silent, I shouldn't be loud, I can't
Mhm.
do this, I can't apply for that PhD, I can't
Mhm.
apply for that job. Whose eyes am I using? And really, it's
Yeah.
so amazing. I did that test today, and so often I realized that the eyes I was looking at myself with, even up to today, although I've read and talked about racism, but still up to today, if I think about it, then I realize I am actually using white eyes to look at myself.
Yes.
And let's tell stories so that we can get other eyes, other ways to look at ourselves.
Mhm.
Because yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And
it's
I
been
think
too
that it's
long.
time, yeah, it's time for us to start making use of these real good eyes, the eyes
Mhm,
of illimitations, the
mhm.
eyes of diversity, the eyes of um I just enjoy taking the room when I get there. I just
Yeah.
enjoy. And I have
Mhm,
learned so quick. I think I just learned so quick. Oh, our time is fast gone. I just
mhm,
learned so quick to know how to sit and just relax, and just relax and then just observe and then get the environment very well. Because I think that
mhm,
um it's also a game and one must learn how to take that room. You must learn
mhm.
how to take that room and believe that it is your space. I mean, we are all God's children, right? And so we are given all that gift, right? And so when I know that it is my gift, it's my right, it is my experiences, you can't argue my experiences with me, and I can't argue your experiences with you. That your experience belongs to you and belongs to me too. So we have to start taking those bold steps and smile and say, I am able to do exceeding more than ever, whoever thought, whoever thinks. And I must not prove to nobody that I can do or I cannot do. I'm just doing without proving. And then I think another thing is that we have to learn to see beyond and quick. We must
Mhm,
learn to stay in the spirit of discernment so that we can easily penetrate quickly and notice what is happening quickly. Some people
mhm,
are really not very sensitive, so even when things are happening, they are not aware. But unfortunately, I tell most of my colleagues and German friends, when you just shake, I know that you shake. So
mhm,
somehow it's so quick by me. I just get to know something is wrong, and my
mhm,
senses are already up and working already, so that I position myself to know what is coming next.
mhm,
So,
mhm.
hey, ladies and gentlemen, we had a different kind of conversation today. We just wanted to dialogue and share with you, but time is always fast going, and we really would have wished that you can join the conversation, even the stream yard. But unfortunately, the time is again fast gone. Hey, Rose, do you have something to say? The last word.
Yes, let's study our history. Let's just look at some another way of looking at ourselves other than what slavery and colonialism has taught us. Because once you realize what Queen Zinga used to do, once
Mhm.
you realize, yeah, Asantewa, once you start looking at Patrice Lumumba and all these powerful people, then you start really respecting your people. And then
Yes.
when you see what they can do, because there is also colorism, and
Yeah.
there is also black people who don't trust each other. But once
Yes.
you see what Black people have been doing in this universe,
Yes.
even that we came here so long and we still didn't mess our planet, and we didn't come up with all these crazy things that sometimes
Yes.
happen. And once we start understanding medicine, where did medicine start? Where did mathematics start? All these things. If we start understanding that, we will be a different people. And then we're
Okay.
not going to go start creating back doors for ourselves. We
Yes.
march in and we say we own this place.
Yes.
And
Yes.
we are allowed to make experiences in Japan, in because this continent, like you said, this world belongs to God, and we are God's children too, and we can do
Mm,
that. I
mm,
can talk on. Thank you so much for your time and for
mm.
this space. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rose. It was such a nice conversation with you today, and I want to appreciate all those who have been listening to us. I hope that next time you're going to also join the platform so we can have the interaction together. And I wish you all the best and enjoy yourself, stay safe, and let's meet again next week for another conversation just like this one. Take care of yourself, and God bless you. Bye
Bless you.
bye.
Bye bye.